So I forgot my little camera stand, so we're doing this selfie style. So sorry if it's really wiggly and I'm looking in all sorts of directions because I'm trying to focus on that little camera dot. But anyway, today we have a 2004 Scion XB, and the complaint is that it doesn't matter what door lock, the passenger side or the driver's side, when you hit the door lock, only the driver's side will lock. If you hit the unlock, only the driver's side will unlock. Now you can manually push them down, pull them up, but as far as the electrical part of it, only the driver's side is responding to the push of the button. So let's dig into it, see what we can find. So I'm inside the vehicle, kind of cramped at the moment. I'm waiting for the rain to die down outside before I get the doors back open and start looking. So this is the door lock, and you can see the driver's side. It'll go down a little hesitantly, but it down, up. But then look at the passenger. Nothing. You can almost hear something trying to work back there, but nothing's happening. And then let me swing around. And then again, that passenger, and then the other rear, nothing. So that's our complaint that we're going to be digging into. So the rain has kind of died down to a little sprinkle. To get the panel off, this is the passenger front. We have a screw here, a screw in this little handle, and then this little screw clip that will pull out. Once you have those three screws out, then it really just, you could pull it from here and it just separates. And then you could pop it off. You might have to pop off this little triangle piece, but maybe not. But let me see. It's just clipped in there, so that's not even a big deal. So just pull that off, and then this should just lift up out of its little window well and then come off. So on this back side, we're just gonna unclip the wiring for now, pull the panel all the way off, but we're gonna wanna re-clip that in a second. But I just wanna separate this panel so I can get that switch out. So to get our switch out, there's this little clip here you can push in, and then it'll drop down and then slide out. So now we have our switch plugged back in, and that way we can push on it and it should be sending its electricity to our motor for the lock. So we can go ahead and move this plastic out of the way. If you can hear that. So it's like it's trying. Yeah. So I think this is actually a really quick diagnosis. It needs a new lock motor. Let's look at some of the others to see if it's all the same. So this is the rear passenger. To get this panel off, you have a screw there and a screw here, and that's it, and it should just separate. So the door lock actuator on this one, the motor is back here. So the door lock is on this side. It's the opposite of where the door lock is. That's where the motor is for the actuator. So this is just two wires. So we can use this as a demonstration. I might need two hands to unplug it. The motor just needs power, ground, and a switch in order to operate. So pretty simple. And you can see that on here. There's just power and a ground. So we'll pull this off, and then we'll just use a test light to see, is our power and is our ground making it to this motor. So how these motors work, you may think, well, how does it know to go up and how does it know to go down? Well, the switch will change the polarity on the pin. So down, one of these will be power and one of these will be ground. Up, the opposite one will be power and the opposite one will be ground. So it just swaps the polarity, and then the motor will either turn in one direction or turn in the other direction. And then through gearing and mechanisms, that translates to an up motion on the lock or a down motion on the lock. So how we check these is we're looking for a power on one of these pins in the lock motion. So we lock it, one of these should have power. When we unlock it, the other one should have power. So right now I have the test light hooked up just to a body ground. I will be just using a front probing pin. If you don't have a front probing pin, just don't jam anything in there, but they give you enough space that the pointy tip on a test light can touch, you know, just very gingerly in there while you move that switch, either lock or unlock. Like the worst camera angle, but you can see, so this is the connector, and then I'm probed into it, so hopefully there'll be enough contrast to see a light. So now I'm going to either go up or down. So that was lock, so unlock should be my light. There it goes. So that unlock is on one of those pins, and then the lock should be on the other. So if I swap it to the other side, then in the other direction, this should light up. So that's lock. Unlock gives me nothing. Now lock lights up. So that's testing the power. Now we want to make sure we got a good ground. In order to do that, we want to hook our test light to a battery positive, and then we could just touch. We're not forcing anything in, we're just touching the terminal, and then it should light up. And then we touch the other one, and it should light up. You don't have to push on the button. That's just for the power. For the grounds, it's just battery positive and then touching. One last way you can test power and ground simultaneously is by probing both pins, because when you hit the switch, you'll have a power and a ground right here. If I hook this in, nothing will happen, but I'll go hit the switch and the light should come on both in the lock and unlock position. So now I'm going to hit the switch. This is lock, light came on, unlock, light came on. So now I have good power and ground in both the lock and unlock, confirmed simultaneously. Whatever method you use may depend on the tools you have at hand, but that's just a couple different ways you can check power and ground. So now let's come back to the front, because you may look at this and there's 5 wires going into this connector. It's a 6-pin connector, but 5 wires or 5 slots are being utilized. It may be confusing, but don't let the amount of wires confuse you. This motor still needs a power and a ground. That's it. That's all the motor needs in order to function. These extra wires, they may be for communication, they may be, if this is like a junction, then power may come in and come out for a totally different lock. So don't get confused with that. On this particular vehicle, the blue and orange right here, and then the blue and black. That's the powers and grounds for this particular motor. So again, the angle isn't the best, but I'm tapped into the wire here, the connector I mean, so maybe there's enough contrast so you can see the light. So in either the up or down position, this should light up. So that is unlock. So unlock lights me up. So let me swap over to the other terminal. Now this should light up in the lock position. So unlock, nothing happens. Now lock, something happens. So that's my powers and grounds on the front here. So this is the last one on the driver rear. We suspect kind of the same thing, but we just want to do our diligence and check powers and grounds for this last one. So have it all hooked up. We have unlock position. We have our power. Okay. Swap it over. And this should be the opposite it'll give me. And there we go. So again, this is just another one. So both of the rears were bad and the passenger front. So kind of interesting that all went out. Maybe one went out and then eventually the other went out, but that's what we have, just 3 bad lock actuators. All right, so that's how simple testing a door lock actuator can be. On these earlier Scions, not much to them. You're just checking a power and you're checking a ground. If you have that power and ground ability to the motor, then the motor must be bad. If the motor can't kick on in either direction, then it needs a motor. Because we have power, we have ground, that's all a motor needs in order to function. Well, and a switch to turn it on and turn it off. All right, so if the customer decides to go ahead with the repair, I'll make a separate video for that, and I'll link it. if it's available. That way these videos, you know, stay short, stay manageable. Well, anyway, hopefully you learned something. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.